Hello everyone, Mr. Gaff here, and today let's look at the bolt-action sniper rifles. There are a total of 12 bolt actions, so that's 4 different rifles for each faction. I've separated them into tiers since each rifle has the same exact stats and performance within its tier over each faction. The tiers are in order of rate of fire, starting with the fastest rate of fire. So if you'd like to skip to a certain tier, you can find the time codes for that in the description. The stats are also a bit different for the bolt actions. I don't know what the drop-off rates are, and we'll add those in with annotations once they are found out by other people. Since they're not actually in the game files, people actually have to trial them out. I also removed time to kill since it doesn't work with snipers. So I'll go by tier for this review and cover the stats, followed by the performance and attachments of each tier, and then finish it all off with a comparison and a rating for each tier. Let's begin with Tier 1. These are the bolt actions with low-powered scopes. The snipers cost 500 station cash or 250 certs to unlock. The rifles are the sas-r, sas, and ghost. The damage starts off at 750 damage per bullet. The rate of fire is the fastest for the bolt actions at 55 rounds per minute, while the bullet velocity is the slowest at 500 meters per second. The short reload is 3.15 seconds and the long reload is 4.5 seconds. Now the advantages of the Tier 1 rifles are that the rifles all have low-powered scopes available to them. The rifles can also be equipped without the scopes for some iron sight firing. These weapons are for firing downrange as quickly as possible while retaining the ability to kill with a one-shot headshot. You will occasionally come upon a max Nanoweave heavy with their shields on that you won't be able to one-shot. Now I have my weapon slot called Quickscope, but trying to play this gun like in Call of Duty is not going to work. You don't have any aim assist, and the bullet velocities aren't 1,000 kilometers per millisecond. However, pulling off a shot on an unwary enemy and switching to your pistol for the kill will work. For this, I would prefer the Emperor, Magshot, or Manticore, since those are the pistols currently available that have a nice balance between damage, rate of fire, and magazine size. Although these rifles are meant for a shorter range, a skilled shooter can still leave their target burying their head in the sand. In terms of attachments, the scopes are the only thing you will want to sort into. The flashlight is still useless at this point, and the foregrip won't help you since you have to scope out every time you shoot anyways. In terms of scopes, I would have preferred to use a night vision scope, but they were removed from the sniper in the beta for balance. I don't really see where the balance comes in, considering that pump actions can one-shot a heavy with shields on from 5 meters away. It's not like the NV scope shows a glowing yellow head icon that points an arrow saying shoot here or something like that. The reason I like the night vision scope so much is that they have the non-intrusive, accurate sights on them, the crosshairs. I started off with the 2x reflex, but quickly abandoned it because the red dot was much bigger than my target's head. I now run with the chevron sight for my SAS, but you should try out all these scopes within the VR training area to see which you like best. None of the scopes will take away your peripheral vision, which is a plus as well. I'd advise against a suppressor since it will greatly increase your bullet drop and probably your damage too. Again, I don't really know about the damage that much because it hasn't been noted and I haven't taken the time to trial it. The only extra money I'd put into the Ghost are for some snow camo to make it as white as the wall. The second tier sports the cheapest bolt actions. These include the M77B, Bolt Driver, and XM98. The VS and TR rifles cost 250 station cash or 100 certs, while the Bolt Driver is free since it's the NC starting rifle for the Infiltrator class. The damage starts off at 750 damage again. The rate of fire is slower at 49 rounds per minute, while the velocity is faster at 550 meters per second. The reload is also slower at 3.5 seconds for a short reload and 5 seconds for a long reload. I have all 3 of the rifles, and they are my favorite of the tiers. I use the default scopes on each, which have a 6x zoom. I find that the snipers provide a nice balance between rate of fire and bullet velocity, though they do take some time to get used to. I remember the first time I tried out the XM98, I went through all my ammo before I even landed a shot on target. There's no need to put any certs into attachments, but you could increase the zoom to a higher level if you'd like. Once again, try out the scopes in the VR training area to see which you like best. The third tier includes the SR7, LA80, and V10, and they are as unremarkable as their names suggest. The reason for this is that they cost a hefty 700 station cash or 1000 certs to unlock. The damage starts off the same as the first two tiers. The rate of fire slows again to 46 rounds per minute, while the bullet velocity climbs again to 600 meters per second. The short reload is 3.75 seconds, while the long reload is 5 seconds. A couple of people who I've talked to do like the rifles, simply due to their improved velocity over the second tier. I don't see the change as that noticeable and would still prefer a faster rate of fire regardless of what SOE would have decided the price to be. Now on to the fourth tier. These are the Rams, Longshot, and Parallax. All three cost 700 station cash or 1000 certs to unlock. They also have a higher damage, starting off at 800 per shot. The rate of fire is the slowest at 40 rounds per minute, while the velocity is the fastest at 650 meters per second. The reload time is costly as well, at 4 seconds for a short reload and 6 seconds for a long reload. In these clips, I was trialing the Parallax. The clips also don't accurately demonstrate the Parallax's prowess, since I accidentally had my mouse sensitivity to the higher sensitivity that I use on the max side of my Hackintosh. So you can see I'm missing a lot more of the shots than I normally would with sniper rifles. The 50 extra damage over the other bolt action does help, especially if you are sniping a lone max walking around, which happens far more likely than you'd expect. And what's great is that the maxes can't fire back since their weapons are so inaccurate at range. The extra damage also helps to take out people who have maxed out Nanoweave armor, which I believe can keep you from getting a one-shot headshot. I'll link a video in the description that goes into more detail on that phenomenon. The attachment choice is the same for the previous two tiers, though I would suggest getting a higher magnification optic to make sure those shots land, since the shots are even more important than the previous two tiers because the refire time is slower. Now I'll go into the general tips for all the bolt actions. The first is to stay away from any base interiors. There may be some pistols that come out after this video's release that are decent enough to compete with the carbines, but currently the only reason to sneak into a base is to hack a terminal and resupply. You won't have to resupply too often with the bolt actions, since each one carries a 5-round clip with 35 shots in reserve. You also want to keep moving. If you stay in the same place without keeping track of your surroundings, you're greatly increasing your chances of getting snuck up upon. You don't always have to cloak as well. If your enemy isn't looking at you and doesn't expect you, don't give them any reason to hear you. Another thing is to always go for headshots. The snipers get a 2 times headshot damage multiplier, which means a kill in just about every situation. The last tip I have is to set your render distance a bit farther than you already have it. This can be done in the user preferences file. I'll try to add a link to that in the description if I can find a decent guide to changing that. For more tips on using the bolt action, I'll link to 3 Reddit posts in the description that go over the Infiltrator class and in specific using sniper rifles. Now many squads and outfits frown upon infiltrators, especially those with bolt actions. Their argument is that bolt actions aren't going to be doing as much towards the team effort as other classes and weapon choices would be. And I understand that to an extent. If you're sniping against big groups, it's hard to go for a certain target, and once you do down someone, they are very likely to be rezzed back up by a medic. To be effective with your bolt action, you will want to concentrate on engineers repairing their vehicles or engineers in their mana turrets. In general, any relatively stationary player is a good target. Once you get used to your sniper even more, a player running for a certain objective will be just as easy to take out. Squad and platoon leaders may also want to look into the bolt actions, since being able to look over the battle and conduct your soldiers is an important part of the role. So now for the ratings. All of the ratings are going to be comparing the snipers against themselves, since there aren't any other weapons similar to the role, except for maybe the Phoenix, given its current strength against infantry. So for the first tier snipers, I'm giving them a 5. They can perform well, depending on the user, but they aren't exceptionally good. In a battle between an equally skilled NS11A user and a first tier sniper user, the NS11A will usually come out on top. For a medium range sniper, you also have to include the semi-automatic scout rifles and the semi-automatic sniper rifles. The next tier will be receiving a 7. They can perform very well at a variety of ranges and have a quick enough refire rate to allow for a few missed shots. On top of that, their price is decent enough to allow a new player to jump in and get some one-hit headshots. For the third tier, I'm giving them a rating of a 2. I think that's my lowest rating so far, and for good reason. I just don't see any point in buying this group of weapons. It's only slightly different from the Group 2 rifles, and it isn't worth the price jump. If you're willing to spend the money, why not go for the fourth tier? I'm giving that tier a 6.5 for its rating. It's a bit pricier and has some trade-offs, but it's the best bolt action at range and against well-armored players. So that's it for this weapon review. Again, if you have an NC weapon you'd like me to look into next, I'd be happy to check one out. I'm trying to get to all the weapons, but I want to diversify between the factions as I go along, and currently I've kind of been lacking in the NC department. I will get to the new faction launchers very soon, but I'm expecting some balance changes to come to each of them, so I might hold off for the time being. Next, I'll probably be getting to the long-range carbines, as well as the MSWR. So I'll leave you with this one final bolt action clip, and talk to you next time. Thank you for watching.